when there's been load shedding.
Mm-hmm.
Then you you try to like brush your teeth and wash your face and get your day started. The water's nice and cold, so that wakes you up really quickly.
It really does.
And then you walk around like an idiot. You're shining this at everything, trying to see what you're doing. And because it's so super early and there's no power, there's no point in me going downstairs to the kitchen to try and make a cup of coffee or anything. So you kind of just sit there going for about, I don't know, 20 minutes, feeling like an idiot. But we're here this morning and we are live. We've got Mash and we've got Ass, and it's going to be me, you, and them this morning.
Yes.
So how you doing?
Yes. I am good. Had quite a weekend, but nonetheless, I am amazing, Gareth.
What did you do this weekend? Sounds like you had fun.
Oh, did a lot this weekend. I mean, for starters, my weekend was quite eventful. A lot of things happened. A lot of ridiculous things actually happened. For starters, I went out on a date, so that was fun.
Oh, went out on a date. Okay, so how did the date go? And is it with this person who's asked you to move in with them?
No, it wasn't.
You already moved on, huh? Didn't take you long.
I haven't moved on exactly, but I decided to just take things slow. And I always say, I mean, dating, how dating works, the dynamics of dating nowadays. You can't just date.
Actually, you're speaking to someone who's completely lost his ability to do any of that stuff. So. No, you'll have to take baby steps with me when you talk about this.
Well, you can't just go out with one person nowadays. You can't just put all your eggs in one basket. You have to just split them out a bit and then just narrow it down. It's levels nowadays. So you just have to narrow it down with each level. So some people are getting eliminated. Some are still remaining in the running. But either way, we're having fun and keeping it going. So this weekend's date was fairly odd to say the least, but went well. I mean, I went on a date with someone in the afternoon 2 days back on Saturday. And
afternoon is good because if you like them, then you can carry it on into the night. But if you don't like them, you can say, oh, well, I've got plans for this evening, so unfortunately I can't do anything else, and we'll have to just call this short. So is that correct? Is that about right?
That is about right. So what happened with this date, I have to confess though, I did double book myself for dates. So I had a date and I thought it wasn't going to go that well. So I actually, because I mean, sometimes you chat with someone over the phone and the conversation is a bit dry over the phone, over WhatsApp. And you think to yourself, if it's this dry over WhatsApp, there's no way it's going to be any more entertaining in real life. So I just kept it moving. Hi, Leigh-Ann.
We're just hearing from Mash. He was double booked on dates this weekend, which, I mean, some of us have problems finding one date every 6 months. This guy's two on one day. It's ridiculous.
I was going to say, what's the problem?
So did you manage to make both feel special? Did you get anything good out of the dates? Do you think you'll see either of these people again?
I might just see one of them again because the first one, I really didn't expect much. I thought, the conversation is so boring over WhatsApp, so it will be boring in person. So I did actually schedule about 2 hours max for this date. Now, 30 minutes before the second date was scheduled, I realized that, oh crap, there's 30 minutes left and this conversation is actually really flowing. I thought it'll be way over. So now I realized that, crap, I had actually double booked myself. So I decided to, you know what? Let's pay this bill and go home. I actually have an emergency, blah, 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 blah. So I just went to my car, sat in the car for about 5 minutes, and then and I told the other person, hi, I'm here. So just meet me here rather. It was close to where we were actually supposed to meet. And they came to the exact restaurant and I went right back in.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you just managed to palm off one and bring in the other. That's very, very, that's deft footwork on your part.
Yes.
I mean, to be able to, you managed that very, very well. I've got to give you full points.
But what about the staff? Wouldn't they have said?
I did brief the waiter. The waiter who actually helped us, I did say, listen here, don't say again. Don't use repetitive words. Don't say again. Don't say, what would you like this time? Just treat me like a new customer, please. And that worked.
The waiter could have spoiled everything for you if they'd slipped up.
Oh, geez. Yes, absolutely. it's load shedding here.
There's Mash in the dark, and then we'll have the generator kick in, and then he'll be back on with us in a second. All right. So, any excitement over your weekend, Leigh-Ann?
Are you kidding?
I was taking a chance.
You saw my reaction to Mash's dating story. I mean,
You were so excited. You wished you were him. You were vicariously living through him during that story.
Yeah. Yeah, no, nothing exciting. I mean, just surviving load shedding. I think for me, I've got to squeeze all the work I can into a small amount of hours. So it's kind of motivating in a way, because if you have a day of 8 hours to do something, to do a couple of tasks, it seems like a lot, and you probably procrastinate a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But when you've got 2 or 3 hours to get something done, it kind of helps that deadline mentality looms and helps you get things done quickly.
Well, I mean, you used to be pretty good at this stuff. I mean, you probably still are. When you decide to do things if you've only got a certain window period of time, and I was talking about this last week, load shedding, you can either get upset about it, which we all are, but what's the point? Because it's just going to drive your blood pressure up and make you unhappy, right? You've got to find a way of making it work for you. So if it means the only thing that is really, really shit for me is that I don't really look at the schedules, and then when I want to like make food, for example, at night, because I mean I don't really have big lunches or breakfasts, so at night I might want to cook something, and then it's a bit of a problem. But otherwise, like if it goes dark, it goes dark. I actually got into bed on Friday, went out for a family birthday dinner, and got back at like I don't know, maybe 11 at night, which wasn't so late. And I just got straight into bed, which was the best thing. I mean, like, that's cool. If you don't have to be anywhere, you don't have to dress up, you don't have to have virtual meetings, then you can do lots of work, because bed is the best place to be. And you basically just take those 2 to 4 hours, because today I think we're going back to level 6 or something. Who the hell knows, right? If it isn't stupid coronavirus levels, then it's stupid.
But also we seem to be handed these excuses on a golden platter for not meeting deadlines, not making it to meetings, wearing pajamas, not drying your hair.
Like, we spoke to one of our clients the other day, and they're like, yeah, can we talk about this in like 2 months' time? And I'm like, what? 2 months? What are you going to be doing for 2 months before we next have to talk about this? It's like people have become really, really expert at like pushing things another month or two.
Yeah.
And they used to, when you could get away with saying the pandemic, people would do that. But now you can't say that. So Eskom, or, like the whole, our staff, when half the people come in on this day, half the people, there's always something. It's bullshit.
There is always something. There's always, I mean, I know. Yeah, I mean, one excuse, especially since it's month end, clients have to pay invoices. And that's the excuse I've been hearing a lot of this past week, that, the load shedding. I'm like, what?
Right.
Load shedding doesn't affect your banking app, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. It's total nonsense. This weekend, though, was also cool because I got to do a whole lot of things around the house that I have been putting off for ages. And some of these things cost money, so you just put them off for good reasons, because there's just no money in the account, or you put them off because you're too lazy to do it. It's like, you have to replace this thing, repair that thing, fix that, paint that, tidy that up. And I got quite a bit of that done this weekend, so I felt quite productive. The problem is some stuff you can't do when there's no power on, like vacuuming, or, if you're going to use a drill or any of that shit. So even there, I've had to like put stuff off. So I mustn't complain too loudly about other people putting stuff off for a month or two, because I'm just that. Like, it might not be a month or two, but it's a day or two. And I'm definitely feeling like I need to get going again, like properly, full, all the cylinders, full steam ahead. I've had enough of this like half and half stuff now. It was fun for a while, and I really did enjoy. I think like lockdown taught a lot of us, and maybe not just lockdown, but all the excuses that came with it taught a lot of us how to value our time. And this is what you're saying about your schedule now. But I don't think we need to be buggering around there anymore. It's time to get on with it now. I want to see things going at full steam.
Yeah. It's also infuriating when, you could accept COVID because it was a disease, but when it's Eskom and avoidable by better management, then you become less tolerant.
Like this is the funny thing about this whole situation, and we're not going to talk about this all morning because it really is all that South Africa is talking about today. But there's no insights I can give you, right? That you haven't already seen. But this obviously is all about bad management, wage negotiations that have gone horribly wrong, unions asking for outrageous things. I mean, the average salary at Eskom is like over 60 grand a month. The average salary, out of 43,000 odd employees. The average salary.
I'd be willing to live with the stone throwing and occasional beatings.
Oh, sign me up
for that.
I mean, 60 grand a month for 40,000 employees is crazy. And I don't think those people should have any right to ask for more. They're asking for double-digit increases. They want like 80% medical aid contributions. They want extra vehicle subsidies. I mean, these are things that nobody else in the working world gets anymore. Vehicle subsidies, medical aid, 80% contributions. No one in private industry gets that. Eskom is the third best paying employer in South Africa, and it does the worst job. So I don't feel like we need to have any sympathy with the workers here. The workers can get screwed. They can fire the whole lot of them and start again. And frankly, it seems like these workers would be a good thing to get rid of them. Most of them don't know what they're doing. Otherwise, we would have had power up to now, wouldn't we? So it's time. Anyway, we'll leave that alone. There's other stuff that we've got to get to today, and a lot of it is fun, and a lot of it is light, and a lot of it is not so heavy. But some of it we want to touch on straight away. So, apart from MASH, a lot of comments coming in from MASH this morning about how how your dating metric is so messy, according to Sanele. Did you at least give the waiter a good tip for not giving you up?
I did give the waiter a very fat tip. So I made sure that I was actually not giving up.
No, that makes sense. And then someone else here saying that they think that you're actually incredible. Like, how did you manage to get that right? They say, same restaurant, this guy's a damn pro. It's Zanele. So, yeah,
one thing I've learned to become very good at because of load shedding is time management. I've learned to be so good at this. I was okay at it before, but now I'm like a pro. I actually plan my days ahead, at least a day in advance. So my entire schedule, when I'm going to work, when I'm going on a date, when this, when that, I plan it all around load shedding to make sure that when I get home, there's always power. Because my apartment is freezing. I can't sleep without an electric blanket on. So I have no other choice but to do so.
Well, I mean, if you can get out of there, that's also a good way. I went to the gym the other day. I said when the load shedding for 4 hours kicked in, I was like, well, they've got all the equipment I need to do some exercise. They've got a hot shower. I'm going to go there, and I'll worry about the rest when I get home. So that was my plan the other day. Listen, the things you can do, right? I mean, if you want to sit and complain, that's fine. Everybody you have the right to complain. I mean, it's reasonable to be pissed off at the moment, but use the time. Find a way to do things. I'm also doing this really not such an exciting thing. It's a diet that I'm on. I'm trying to just lose like 5 kilos just to see if I can. And a lot of people have been saying to me, "Oh, diets don't work," and trying to demotivate me effectively. But I'm enjoying the discipline of it. And also,
is it an eating plan, like from a dietitian?
No, so it's like 14 days. They give you breakfast, lunch, and supper, what you've got to do for those 14 days. And it worked for a very good friend of mine. So he said, try this. So I'm going to give it a go, and I'll report back at the end of week 2. I'll have done a week by tomorrow.
Oh.
So
what are you cutting out and what are you leaving in this diet?
It's really not that interesting. I mean, it's like you have to have it's like boiled eggs, which is so fucking horrible. I hate those. But it's different every day. So like, for example, yesterday for lunch, I had to have steamed fish and tomatoes. Then, yeah. So some of it's some of it is not so great, and some of it is great. But there's nothing exotic on there. It's like you have to have a green salad for lunch. Then, for breakfast today, I'm so lucky. Today I get.
Mash was trying so hard to be open-minded.
I know,
He was
so
like,
shit.
okay, so like, what is it? And then you said steamed fish and tomato. And he was like, ugh.
I get a black cup of coffee, and I can have as much black coffee as I like.
Yeah,
but
this sounds
no milk,
like
no sugar.
This is a very 80s diet, hey?
It is. It's so crap.
I'm coming from a place of a lot of experience.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to see if it works. If it does nothing, then screw that.
It does instill that little bit of discipline and
I don't like thinking. I don't like thinking too much about what to eat. So it's like I've got a plan, and I just have to eat this stuff, and then I'm happy. I'm hungry a lot of the time, but I'll be fine. I'll be happy. I'm going to give it 2 weeks. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Too bad.
The thing with losing weight, especially, I've learned personally, because I've actually lost 30 kgs last year, by the way. Last year, I lost 30 kgs. Yes.
Are you kidding?
Dude,
seriously.
You were never that big.
I was that big.
Did you have Did you have big feet that you were hiding in shoes? Like 20 kilograms each? How the hell did you get that right?
I actually had so I had like very large hips, and I lost weight everywhere. Actually, I lost weight everywhere.
Amazing.
I lost a lot of weight. My secret was actually I learned that for me personally, it wasn't about dieting or changing what I'm eating, but rather substituting certain items. So, for example, I completely cut out sugar. Completely. So instead of having sugar, I was having sweetener or lemon. And instead of having like sweet drinks and juices and all of that, I replaced all of that with either water, coffee with sweetener, or I just had a Coke Zero. So the no sugar drinks. And that was the biggest determining factor for me. And I lost so much weight so fast, along with gymming, of course. I went to gym a lot.
Yeah. Look, I'm never going to discredit you, but I will just say one thing. It does seem, and I was also married for a time, and if I wanted to lose weight, I would have to go on the type of diet that Gareth's on. But my partner would just stop drinking Coke and having sugar in his coffee, and he would lose weight so much easier. So I'm not discrediting you and saying it's easy, but I'm like, sure, that's amazing though. That is truly amazing.
Hey, listen, you know what it all comes down to is discipline. I mean,
it's all
everybody's body's different, and everybody has a different reaction to sugar or to fat or to whatever. So there's no like one cure for all. And I also don't think that diets are necessarily good for you, because your body gets shocked. Like 1 minute it's eating this, the next minute it's eating that. Then, the essential ingredient here is discipline. Like Mash says, he cut out sugar. If that's your thing, then cut out sugar and see if that works for you. If you follow a specific diet for however many weeks, do it. See what happens. If it doesn't work for you, try something else. But there's a combination. And like I've always been pretty good about being disciplined about exercise. But now I need to be disciplined about eating, and I'm going to see if it makes a huge difference. If it does, awesome. Then I'll report back, and we'll see how it goes from there. But it might not work for me like it worked for this other person.
But I do know that what you eat actually makes up the largest portion of your fitness as compared to the exercise. So you will definitely see a difference. You will. And you guys can actually see my before and after pictures, because I did post quite a lot of them on Instagram. I used to be huge.
We'll go. I'll put up
amazing. Well done.
Put up your Instagram handle. So Mash says this is a different Mash. Mashinini says it works. G. I had an eating program in 2018. I lost 25 kilograms over 8 months. Gymming and doing track exercises at the stadium on some afternoons. Just discipline and consistency. Yeah, there it is.
I just think of parking at a stadium and walking to the stands. That's enough for me.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the most interesting thing about all of this, though, is just kind of how easy it is if you again, I would always go to the fridge and go, oh, what do I want now? And then there'd sometimes be nothing in the fridge that I wanted, but you kind of make your way, right? And with this, I know exactly what I'm having. I just look at the list and I'm like, okay, good. I'll do that today. And frankly, it's a hell of a lot easier making breakfast if it's just a piece of old dry bread than than if you have to cook a whole thing. A lot of this stuff is not complicated to make. It's really easy to cook and to do. Anyway, so Cabello says sugar is the devil. Sparkling water is a great substitute for sugary fizzy drinks. That is true. That's a good one. Water in general, I drink a lot of water. So
yeah, me too.
I think that my water intake is pretty good. I'm
making me thirsty.
I reckon I'm probably doing what, maybe 4 liters a day, maybe even more, maybe up to 6.
It's a lot of water.
Yeah. I drink a lot of water, but it must be cold. That's another reason when the fridge hasn't been working for a while and that water's like a little bit less. I love the cold, the feeling of like really cold water in your mouth and going down your throat's the best thing ever. I can't drink like lukewarm tap water. Can't stand that. It's horrible. Ugh. Anyway, there are a couple of other things that are on the list that we need to get to that I mentioned earlier. So first of all, SARS doesn't owe Candice van der Merwe a 44 million refund on a politician's gift. So this is an interesting story. You remember that Candice van der Merwe went over to, I think, Dubai or somewhere like that. She ended up getting a huge
Lebanon.
Lebanon, that's right. She got a gift, and I mean these things should raise any eyebrows, right? From this guy who decided, I'm going to give you a couple of million, and he did. And then when she got back here, apparently SARS just took their share of it. They're like, okay, well, we'll have that. Thank you. Of course, SARS thinks they can take whatever they want, and many people think that they can. But what's the actual story here? That the court has ruled that SARS doesn't have to give her the money back. She handed it over.
Yeah, she tried to fight it, and it was pretty obvious because her salary certainly wasn't anything amazing. And her tax bill, as a result, wasn't really amazing either. I mean, in 2014, she earned an average of 30,000 Rand per month. Her tax came to 13,000 Rand for the year.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, she got a gift from a companion abroad. In fact, it was the Lebanese prime minister, who's now former. But they met at a place called the Plantation Club and Resort in the Seychelles in 2012. She was 20, he was 43. And he decided to give her this sponsored trip money to add a bit of glamour to the resort.
Wow.
He, at the time, was a father of 3 and married as well, and decided to give over this money.
This is why you got to be rich as a guy. There's just it doesn't matter what you look like. You just have to have tons of money. You can.
That is true.
You can have any beautiful girl accompany you anywhere. If you give her money, she'll go with you. If you don't have money at the age of 50 and you're a guy and you want to get married, or you find someone attractive and you don't have cash, too bad. It's not going to happen for you.
That is true.
But I mean, like, how much?
Wow.
Because this gift was 142.9 million Rand.
Jesus.
So they didn't know each other before this at all?
No.
Okay, he says the plantation in the Seychelles? That's where it is?
That's where we need to go, yeah. That's where you've got to go. Yeah.
Okay, I'm writing that down.
If you want to meet someone really, really hot and you're looking for a sugar daddy or you're looking for a gift, I mean, go. That's where you got to do it. I think it's awesome.
Sheesh.
So, of course, because it's a gift, SARS is going to step in and say that's a taxable income. In fact, they initially suggested that she pay 110.3 million Rand of taxable income, but it was later set to 44.175. Oh, I sound like Zuma for a moment here. This article is misquoted. It has put the dot in the wrong place, so it doesn't make sense. But yes, in essence, it's about 44 million rand.
Doesn't this also tell you that, like, again, the greatest superpower you can be born with is just to be born beautiful? Here she is with the guy. This is the guy.
You've got the beautiful and the rich.
Ooh.
Yes, but this is the point. They find each other, right? Like the rich people want beautiful people around them all the time. Beautiful people want money. So there's Candace van der Merwe and the Lebanese Prime Minister Hariri, and he was the one who gave her the gift. I mean, it's such an open transaction. I don't know how anyone could have a problem with it. I totally get that there'll be people who say, that's disgusting. If you're a pretty looking girl and you get offered millions, I mean, it was what, $16 million total. So what are you going to do? Say, oh, no, I'm too moral and ethical for that. I don't know what the exact details of their arrangement were, but perhaps this guy's just loaded with cash and he really just loved her that much that he wanted to give her this gift. And there was no expectation from him. Who knows? Obviously, it's unlikely because, if someone's going to make that kind of an investment, I think you know what they want. But again, if she didn't look pretty, if he didn't have money, none of this would have happened.
It's like a very old school kind of deal. But I mean, I don't blame her for taking it to court and trying to fight it because 44 million rand is definitely worth fighting over, especially if you have the money to fight it with.
And then I have to say, I mean, like a lot of people go, oh, that it's right then that she pays her share of taxes. I've never believed in that. I think tax is just theft from the state. It's just the state is the biggest gun in the room, and they point their gun at you and they go, pay. And you just don't have an option. Like, what did the South African government have to do with this gift? A private individual giving another private individual money for something. What role does government have in that?
Yes.
If I wasn't driving over potholes and everything worked in the country, then I might have been okay with it. But no.
No, I don't see anything. I mean, there's just nothing in this that makes government look good. Again, if all of us just decided tomorrow we don't want to do this anymore, we're not paying these assholes taxes anymore, it would all come to a grinding halt. All of this stupidity would end, but none of the service delivery that we wish we had would end because it's already ended in most places. I mean, some people are sitting in the dark right now. There are some people who they haven't got jobs anymore because of stupid lockdown regulations and things. So don't tell me that it's going to get worse. It's not. I actually think if we all stopped paying tax tomorrow, it wouldn't get worse. It might get better. We'd get these guys out. There'd be less theft and corruption because there wouldn't be anything to steal. And little communities would kind of look after themselves. They'd find ways. And I think the big things like, roads and electricity, we'd figure it out because people are smart that way. South Africans especially, very resourceful. Don't tell me that we need a government because we need to maintain our sovereignty. Our borders are wide open. People can walk over the border anytime to this country or outside of this country. No one's controlling that stuff. So what do you need them for? We've spoken about this a million times. Anyway, so I think I believe it's wrong. They should give Candace that money back. First of all, because she's good looking, and second of all, because it's got nothing to do with the government. Really?
Yes.
You agree, man?
I completely agree. And I've seen the comments here. She even bought herself a house in Clifton.
Yeah, apparently Marco says you should see her house in Clifton. It is insane. Wow.
Jeez.
Well, good for her. What else? Listen, you got to invest that money in something, and property in Cape Town is not a bad investment. So that's smart. It would be so sad and pathetic. Imagine if she bought like just clothes and a shiny car.
Yeah, or she ends up like,
no, like a convertible car and shoes and clothes. That would be such a waste of money. I mean, even with 16 million, you could piss away a lot of money on shoes and clothes.
Yeah, like the people on I Blew It.
Yes.
That is sad.
Such a cool show. By the way, we've got to get to Dr. Hanan just now. We'll ask him about a couple of the things that are on your mind this morning. If you want to know what's going on, then let us know. If you want to ask us a question, that is, if you want to speak to Dr. Hanan, send us an email, contact@cliffcentral.com. We want to talk about that. Now, I want to know, while we're talking about expensive things, Mash, DJ Maporisa got himself a 500,000 Rand Birkin bag. Talk about shopping, and
Yes.
I blew it. So what is this? I mean, like, what makes this bag worth 500,000 Rand?
Firstly, I myself don't know what makes it worth 500,000 Rand because this is just a bag.
Yes.
Nothing special about it. It's just cow leather, nothing insane, no crazy amounts of gold. You should see this bag. It is so basic looking.
Amazing.
I'll just walk past someone in the street actually holding this bag. There's nothing unique about it. It has no loud branding. There's no flowers or anything all over it. Nothing. It is so just average. And he spent, to be exact, 477,000, it's reported, that he spent on this bag. And Twitter was just not having it. Twitter was actually coming after him, saying that, you could have done this with the money. You could have bought a family that is in need a house. You could have bought groceries for so many families. You could have done this. You could have done
money.
that.
He can do what he wants with his money.
Exactly. And
Not
that
yours.
is something that happens all the time, that I see all the time on social media, that whenever somebody actually works hard and gets themselves something from the hard work to just reward themselves for all the hard work they've done, all of a sudden it's a thing of, no, we don't want to support you because, you owe us now. Or what about the poor people? What about the hungry people? And it's like, but I worked hard for this money.
Do what you want with your own money. I love the way everybody on Twitter wants to tell everybody who's got money and they don't. They want to tell them how to spend it.
Yeah, I mean, there was
nobody, some blue tick, not even blue tick, some little like no profile picture idiot on Twitter is like telling everyone else, you should spend your money. If you know how to spend money and you know how to make money, why don't you go and earn some of your own? How about that?
Exactly. I mean, I saw one comment where someone was like, he could have just bought some poor family a house with that money. He could have bought a family a house. I was just so touched by this. I actually commented on that and I was like, okay, so where's the house you bought a poor family then?
Yeah.
If he should buy one, then where's the one you bought?
Right.
Yeah. People feel so entitled to tell people how to spend their money. It's that age-old thing of, as soon as someone becomes wealthy, all of a sudden we all feel entitled to how they spend their money.
Yeah. It's like when,
and it's all
Elon Musk was
as well.
buying Twitter, someone was like, oh, well, we should really spend the money on this and that. I also saw, was it AKA who was asking on Twitter a while ago, Elon, why don't you come and help us sort out our electricity problems? Like, first of all, Elon Musk doesn't give a shit about South Africa, and neither does he have to. You don't have to care about your country. That's such an old school thing too. This idea of patriotism, you know. What was the Wilfred Owen poem? Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. You don't have to care about what your country's up to. That's an old way of thinking. And in this country, imagine if Elon Musk gave us a battery for every house, and it cost him like a couple of $1 billion, but it's nothing to him. And then I promise you, because he'd have to deal with government in some way, within 3 months, most of the batteries that were intended for us would have been stolen.
That's true. That is true.
People would have sold their batteries for food.
Yeah, so you want to buy a Birkin bag. I mean, I know, Leigh-Ann, you've got a couple of handbags there that are worth 500,000 Rand. I know that.
Yeah. Got this one hanging here, which is...
Yeah. That's a $1 million Rand bag there.
Oh, yeah, I'm coming over there.
But also, it's so relative. I mean, are you telling me then, person commenting on Twitter, that when you get a 60,000 Rand bonus at work, you're going to spend 50,000 Rand on it helping someone?
No, of course not.
You're not.
Of course not. No, but the people who say that are the ones who are the least charitable themselves, which is what Mash pointed out when he said to them, well, where's the poor person's house that you help pay for? Because of course they have it. Truly good charitable people quietly do these things and don't really involve themselves with other people's business. Anyway, listen, we've got to get to Dr. Hanan because there's a huge amount of stuff going on today and I don't want to miss out on any of it. So let's get straight to it. I'm going to also welcome Ali, who's going to join us in just a moment. She's going to tell us her story and she's got a question for Dr. Hanan. It's going to be okay with Dr. Hanan Bushkin. Alison sent us this email and she joins us on the show to talk with Dr. Hanan today. She says, many of us in South Africa do not have the option to live elsewhere and are either thinking of emigrating or are actively in the process. of doing so after events of the last year or so. Leaving the country of your birth, which you love, is an incredibly difficult decision, especially when you feel that you're doing so not because you want to, but because you have to. There are all sorts of emotions involved: fear of the unknown, second guessing your choices, and the most difficult one to deal with is guilt. I have so many friends and family members who are going through this now, and I'd like to hear Dr. Hanan's advice on how to process these emotions during the stress of a relocation, which involves a new house, a new job, and a new country. So I think that's such a good question. Let's put her on and get to meet Ali. How are you doing, Alison? Nice to see you.
Morning, nice to meet you all. I have to say I'm super excited to be on. I've been following you guys, Gareth and Leigh-Ann, since 5FM days, so super excited.
Oh, nice. Well, it's nice to meet you. Is it you who's thinking of moving, or is it friends and family?
So my sister left 2 weeks ago, and it's sort of sparked the conversation with myself and my husband as to, should we now be doing this as well? My other sister's already been there. She's been there for 10 years.
Where have they gone to, by the way?
The UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing. I mean, once someone's decided, I try to not talk them out of it, it's because it's really their decision, and you kind of just support them and do what you can. It's a very tough call, though, because you do start thinking, most of the people I was at varsity with, I would say a third of them are left in South Africa. The other 2/3 have gone elsewhere. And as you say, like most of us who are left here now are either looking at it and going, well, I can't afford to do it, or you're just going to see where it goes because you don't think necessarily your opportunities are better anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I was always one of those people who sort of looked at people leaving and went like, what are you doing? This is a lovely country, and et cetera, et cetera. But there've been a number of things in the last year I'm from KZN, so the riots were a big factor for us. It was quite a scary situation. We've had the floods, we've got water shedding, we've got load shedding. There's this whole raft of weird legislation the government's passing that they think is going to create more jobs but isn't, and there's a whole lot of things that make you think, what am I actually doing here?
Well, I'm not embarrassed to admit it now that my position has changed over the course of the last 15 years. It's gone from, oh, you want to leave South Africa, what an idiot you are, to I totally understand, and you go ahead and do that. You do you. I'm really not passionate about either side of the argument. People must do whatever they feel is right for them. I don't know that there's a right answer or a wrong answer, but I do think the one thing that I have kind of picked up about the people who move and are happy and the people who are moving and are unhappy, and a lot of people who are unhappy pretend to be happy because they don't want anyone to know that they've made the wrong decision, right? So the thing that I think differentiates the two is that the people who are happy now, wherever they might be in the world, and they've moved to very, different locations, very diverse places. People who are happy have moved for a reason. In other words, they've moved there for something positive. Either they wanted to take up a new job, they wanted to explore the world, they wanted to send their kids to a school in another country. There are a whole bunch of reasons that they might have done that. But if the reason is positive, as far as I can tell, then positive things happen. If the reason is negative, like if you're trying to get away from something or you've had a very bad experience here, and listen, I'm sympathetic. I understand why somebody might want to leave if something awful has happened to them or their family. But I don't think that a negative reason to go is a good reason. It's got to be something.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I totally agree. And I've seen the same thing. And I think that's been part of where we've been with our decision, is that I don't want to leave just because I feel like I have to. I want to leave because I feel like I'm going to something, and that there's something I'm excited about. And there are those emotions as well. London is a huge sort of door opening career wise for myself and my husband, and that's exciting. So it's
well. Let's bring on Dr. Hanan. His camera is off because he's load shedding this morning, but he is there to listen to you. Hey, Doc.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Morning.
You would be sitting in the dark, so we wouldn't see you anyway. But
I'm in complete darkness.
I'm glad we managed to. So, Dr. Hanan, you might have heard all of that when we were talking to Ali about like her sister moving and the idea of emigrating. And it's a big decision. It's probably one of those 4 or 5 things that people are most apprehensive and nervous about, right? Moving to another country is a whole big traumatic deal.
Completely. So, as we said many times on the show, the human mind really likes predictability, stability, consistency, and creating a home is not just it's not just kind of a couple word sentence. It's building memories, creating relationships, building and engaging in memories, and from your kids going to a certain school to you growing up in a particular place, and uprooting yourself from all that and that environment and putting yourself in a brand new environment is incredibly traumatic. Incredibly traumatic. If anybody ever tells you that they've left a country to another country and that was easy, they're lying. It's not possible. It's an absolute lie, because again, to go from place A to place B, even though place B might be better for you for whatever reason, and we could discuss why somebody should be moving, it's still, the brain needs time to adjust, and that adjustment period is incredibly difficult. I've had the privilege over the last, especially 2.5 years, to speak to people from all over the world. Before COVID, I can tell you that I've had conversations and patients, expats, so South Africans living in London and South Africans living in Australia and South Africans living in the UK. And they've all told me the same thing, that it's very, very difficult, very challenging. And over the last 2.5 years, I've had the privilege of speaking to Australians living in Australia and Canadians living in Canada. And the common denominator is that everybody is struggling.
Yeah.
Everybody is struggling. There's no perfect place. There's no perfect environment. There's no perfect situation that where there's no utopia. There's no place that you can go to where there's no stress. One thing that's in common amongst everybody, human nature, is that suffering is part of the deal. Sacrifice is part of the deal. Disappointment is part of the deal. That's life, and it's how you manage it and what kind of challenge you choose to live with. So does South Africa have like smaller nuances and smaller different challenges? Of course, to anywhere else, of course. But the common denominator is this disappointment and hurt and frustration. Everyone's suffering everywhere. It's kind of, you choose your challenge wherever you go. But to your point, Ali, it is very challenging for somebody to move. For yourself, if you're thinking of moving, it's an incredibly traumatic experience. To lose somebody to another country is incredibly traumatic, because a part of your lifestyle, a part of your memory, a part of your world has been kind of pulled away, and suddenly you have to adjust to that reality too. So yeah, it's incredibly challenging, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's exactly the sort of struggle that I have with this whole situation. Is to me it's not a black and white, as you say. Everywhere's got problems. So I'm fully aware I'm not going to move to the UK and suddenly everything's going to be a bed of roses. I know there's going to be challenges and issues that side as well. And it's really trying to balance in my head the frustrations and the issues that I see in South Africa, the opportunities that I see there, and to balance those two things and sort of on the balance of things make the decision. And then once you've made the decision, obviously, as you say, Gareth, you've got to then be positive about it and just go and do the best that you can,
So Doc, I think that, we're all kind of on the same page here, but what do you think it is that makes it so difficult? Is it abandoning those memories, especially if you're in your 30s, 40s, maybe, because that's the age that a lot of people might be thinking about it. Maybe you decide to do it a lot earlier. Who knows? But is it that collection of memories? Is it that what do you call it? Sunken cost, almost, of this is where I am. I've spent my entire life making friendships, connecting myself to various other people in business or in romantic relationships or in family relationships. And now I have to start from scratch again. Is that the worst part of it?
So let's put it this way. Well, if you had to ask the average person, is stress good or bad? The average person will tell you stress is bad. But it's not as simple as that. The truth is that in life, guys, whatever you value comes married with stress. Value comes married with stress. That's the way it works. That's the law of the land. Value equals stress. So I value my kids. It comes with stress. I value my marriage. It comes with stress. I value my job. It comes with stress. I value my health. It comes with stress. That is the nature of the way it works. So if somebody had to say to me, Hanan, how do I eliminate stress? Well, the answer is, well, eliminate everything that you value. and that you can't do, because then you get depressed. So when somebody says to me, I'm stressed, I go, well, good for you. Obviously you value something. Now there's a difference between healthy and unhealthy stress. So healthy stress is when I focus on or stressed over anything that I value, but I have a framework to manage it. Unhealthy stress is when I'm stressed over something that I value, but with no framework, with no blueprint, no method, no way to actually take control over it. Now, so the next question, and to your point, Gareth, how do you increase or decrease something that we value? Well, value is decided by what you're invested in. So the more you invest into something, the more valuable it becomes, the more there's stress. Because remember, value equals stress. So the more you invest into something, the more valuable it becomes, the more there's stress. So the analogy is, if I invest R1 million into a business and it fails, I'm devastated. If I invest nothing into a business and it fails, I don't care, because I'm not invested into it.
Right.
So to your point, Gareth, the reason why leaving a country is so devastating is because, can you think of your investment in a country? And it's not just in a country, by the way. It's in relationships, it's in memories, it's in growing up, it's in familiarity, which we mustn't just take for granted, which is very powerful. So think about the coins that you invested day in, day out in a particular environment that you're about to let go of. So it's like investing, again, I'll use money as an example. It's like investing R1 million on a daily basis, and suddenly at the age of 30, 40, 50, you have to let it go. You have to let it go. You have to shut down the business. I mean, that immediately comes with stress. It's devastating. That's why. So whatever you invest into is whatever you value comes with stress. And the reason, by the way, just for anybody that's interested, the reason why value comes with stress is because the moment you value something, there's always the potential of losing it. And that's where it comes with stress. So that's why value comes with stress. So that's why leaving a country is so difficult, because you're so heavily invested into it.
So, Ali, is there anything you want to ask Dr. Hanan before we let him go? Because there are a couple other questions I've got, but you're the one who gets to pitch your question to him. I mean, this is your free counseling and therapy session.
So I mean, I suppose my question would be, how do you actually sort of deal with that stress of this whole move and everything, while still having these other emotions? And I think for me, weirdly, the biggest emotion actually is guilt. Having always been a patriotic person, I feel incredibly guilty about leaving the people like my gardener, my domestic work, all the people who rely on me and my little ecosphere, and I almost feel like I'm abandoning ship. And how do you sort of work through that and actually go with a positive mindset?
Right. So I'll mention a couple of things. Number one, that whenever one of my most important principles to live by is never ever sit on the fence. Don't allow yourself to sit on the fence, because you just bleed inefficiency when you're on the fence. I tell my patients, and the way I live my life is, I would rather make the wrong decision than make no decision, because nothing happens when you make no decision. There's no feedback. You're not getting any feedback to let you know how you can U-turn or you can correct your framework to get to the desired goal. So number one is, you got to commit to a position and marry a position. The other thing that you have to understand is that life very rarely, maybe a handful of times in your lifetime, will offer you a position that is 100% right from the start. Life most of the time will give you a 60-40 or 55-45 or mostly a 51-49 decision. And you have to sometimes make a very difficult decision at a cost, at a sacrifice. And leaving the country, there's no question about it, there's a sacrifice. But you have to commit to a position. The third thing that I will say is that the definition of suffering is committing to a position and fantasizing about the alternative. I've said this before. So being married and fantasize about being single. Living in Joburg and fantasize about living in Cape Town. wanting to the discussion you were having this morning, guys, wanting to lose weight and fantasizing about the chocolate cake.
Yeah.
That is a definition of suffering. Suffering is committing to a position and fantasizing about the alternative. So, Alison, to your point, once you commit to a position, so you've done your maths, and maybe we'll do a longer show on how you can actually work out what will be the 51-49% decision. But once you commit to a position, absolutely immerse yourself in it. Immerse yourself in it, knowing that guilt and disappointment and imposter syndrome. So do you know what imposter syndrome is?
Yeah.
So questioning your decision is part of the deal. That's the sacrifice. That's the sacrifice of picking the 51, because there's still 49% or 49 reasons of why you shouldn't go. There's 51 why you should, and there are 49. That comes part and parcel of that's part and parcel of the deal. Adulting is accepting a position that comes with a sacrifice. Adulting is accepting a position that comes with sacrifice, and guilt is part of it. So, but how do you get rid of the guilt? Immerse yourself in your new position until your brain adjusts. Once your brain adjusts, the guilt goes away. But the reason why the guilt, you might say to me, but Hanan, so many people move to a country, or so many people make a decision, and the guilt doesn't go away for years, is because they haven't immersed themselves in a position. Guilt only goes away if you immerse yourself 100% in your decision. 100%. Because if you go to another country and fantasize about South Africa and what you're leaving behind, the guilt will never go away. Once you commit to a position, once you break up with somebody, once you choose to lose weight, once you choose to, whatever your decision is, immerse yourself in it until your brain adjusts. Once your brain adjusts to the new reality, that's when the guilt goes away. But you have to immerse yourself in it without living in the alternative.
So then I'm assuming, Ali, you've made your decision and that you are now going to have to come to terms with it. I mean, Dr. Hanan has been so clear about that. Immerse yourself in the decision. Don't look back. Keep forging forward, and the stress will come down. The guilt will come down. But you've got to actually pour yourself into this new decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Hanan.
And don't worry about us. I mean, like you say, patriotism and, your domestic worker and all. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. We'll have to make it plan. Don't worry about the rest of us. This is about you and your life, and you've got to do what's right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Doc, thank you very much. It's always good to have you on.
Guys.
And I hope your load shedding isn't too bad today. In fact, I hope that's the case for you too, Addy. We will see you, Dr. Hanan, next week, Monday. And we've got more for you in the next hour of the show. CliffCentral.com. Don't go anywhere. It is a Monday. Tell us what you're up to.
Do you suffer from collectivism?
I started collecting when I was about 8 years old.
Do you have an obsession with objects?
I sort of got into collecting TV cars.
Are you a fanatic? A devotee? Are you someone exhibiting enthusiasm or strong passion?
When lockdown hits, when everyone was kind of bored at home, they started Googling, like, what are these things worth these days?
Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating.
The frame's total value is probably about 12,000 Rand.
Possibly a little weird.
I developed this infatuation with the Statue of Liberty.
Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and The Scoin Shop.
Up next in the Auto Trader podcast.
But essentially, we came across the point that in some instances, the brakes of an ICE vehicle and an EV car are not necessarily the same price. So with that being said, you last week asked if we can reach out to our friends at Volvo.
Because they've got identical cars.
Because they have an identical ICE and battery electric vehicle, as well as hybrid, but it's not in South Africa, where we can actually go and find out what's the lowdown on this.
And thank you to Volvo.
Yeah, thank you to our friends at Volvo. And they did come back. They did come back with exactly what we asked for.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right, good morning. It is Monday on cliffcentral.com. It's just after 7 o'clock. We want to find out what you are up to this morning and how your weekend was. Let us know. Drop us a comment. I see lots of people talking about this idea of making decisions and going through with it and following through. Obviously, culture shock is huge, says Steph. And living in Europe, the lack of space took ages for me to get used to. Yeah, it's weird. Like the things that you think are not going to influence or affect you are sometimes not the ones that do. It's a weird thing. Like I think a lot of people think about the weather when they make a move. A lot of people think about job opportunities. A lot of people think about what kind of school their kid might go to. But for many of us, the biggest shock might be something like what Steph is saying, a lack of space. Like you don't have a lot of room in places like Europe. Houses are small, doors are small, stairs are small. Everything's little compared to here. And if you're used to South Africa, we've got expanse and like a high, in South Africa, you think about the sky. And I always think we take for granted the fact that in summer, especially, those clouds are just so high up and so far away. And the sky is so blue and so big. And you don't get that in places like London, even in the best of weather. So it's something to think about. And I'm not going to persuade anyone anymore to stay or to go. If you feel that the world is your place to explore and you want to get out there, do it. I don't think anyone should only ever stay in their country, even if you just go and visit other countries. But to be stuck in one place is terrible, where you don't have options. So there we go. A decision is always hard until it's been made, says Tracy. That's, how many people get stuck in analysis paralysis, even in work? I mean, you think about how many people just go round and round in circles because they're too scared to make a decision in case they make the wrong one. I wonder how many people, if you could measure that, how many people live like that and how many people are just stuck in this torture of not being able to make a decision.
Sure. Must be a lot of people, actually.
I'm sure it is.
It's sad.
So, all right, let's look at some slightly more optimistic and hilarious things. We've got a couple of headlines we've got to get to as well. But first, I want to talk about this quickly. What would you do if you got paid 286 times your salary? Because this is exactly what happened. This is something from IOL. So, again, who knows whether they're telling the truth here or not. But this is amazing. In Durban, apparently this Chilean man accidentally got paid 286 times his salary in May. He promised to return the money that he was paid, but instead decided to resign from his job, and he just vanished. So the story was written by someone in Durban, but it's actually from Chile. This guy worked for a Consorcio Industrial de Alimentos, which is a company that produces cold meat in Chile. Okay, cold meat like ham and shit. Due to a clerical error, the business paid him 165,398,851 Chilean pesos, which is about 2.9 million rand.
Jeez, that's a...
So instead of his usual 500,000 pesos, which is about 8,918 rand, surprisingly, before he performed his vanishing act, the man had informed Human Resources of the mistake in his payment for the month. Upon inspecting their payroll records, they checked it out and they saw, oh, hell, this guy was given 286 times his wage. And following this, they contacted the employee and asked him to return the money. But he decided, nah, they'll just disappear. So he went to his local bank and he drew the money and then he left.
Yeah, you've got to work out. I mean, how many more days did he have to work to get that money? And then you realize it's probably worth just taking it and going.
Well, 286 times his salary means that he would have worked for another 286 months in order to earn that money. And that's a damn huge space of time. I mean, that would be another 23 years.
Jeez.
He would have had to work 23 more years. So yes, that's when you grab the cash and you make a dash. Talk about now that guy didn't have to think too much about emigrating, because I guarantee he's not in Chile anymore.
That's true. That is true. Yo, sign me up. If I got paid 286 times my salary, y'all ain't never seen me again. I'm disappearing so fast. Fast. I'm changing my name. My name is now going to be Timba, somewhere in Mozambique. And that'll be the last you hear of me.
Right. Absolutely.
Sure.
But I mean, do you live with the guilt forever?
But you just heard what Dr. Hanan said about
I know.
guilt. Commit to the idea and get on with it. You heard what he said. So let me ask you both this. We discussed this probably years ago. But if you had to make a run for it and leave South Africa and go and start new, but because they were chasing you down, so you'd go to a country where it might not be where you have connections or any of that stuff. It's just to get away. If you had to run away, you said Mozambique now, Mash. Where would you go, Leigh-Ann, if you got paid 286 times your salary and needed to gap it?
I have to stick to my guns and say the Algarve in Portugal, to some really tiny fishing village where you kind of pull your chairs out of your apartment and sit on the pavement in the afternoon to listen to the neighbors argue and to see who's coming home with how much fish, what their days were like, who's having affairs. Watch the world go by.
Where would you go, Mash? Mozambique. Is that your first port of call? Because it would be easy to get in and out, right?
Yeah, Mozambique is where I'm going to run away from. Yeah. So I would actually end up in Poland.
Poland?
Yes.
What the hell would you want to do in Poland? I'd rather go to Mozambique.
It's a beautiful country. Their springs are beautiful. The lakes, it's a beautiful country. And it is so semi-secluded. So it's easy to actually completely disconnect from the world that side.
Maybe. I still reckon that the best places to go are tropical places, because you're going to have good weather all year round. You're going to be able to sit on the beach. I don't want to be in a civilized first world place either, where they can track me down. You want to be in Guatemala or in Panama or in Jamaica. You want to be somewhere along the equator. You want to be in the Caribbean, or you want to be in Central Africa, because I think if you've got enough money, you can really make a nice life for yourself in those places. And you're very isolated, but then people can come and visit you, I suppose, as long as they keep it on the DL.
Hey, people can forget about me, but either way, it's just a secluded place, no cameras.
I can't believe you'd want to go to Poland. That's crazy.
Poland is a beautiful country, Gareth. It is stunning.
I reckon, look, even in South Africa, there are places you could probably hide away. Our crooks hide in broad daylight. Our crooks, the politicians, they keep doing their jobs. So, in this country, you could get away with anything. But there are parts of South Africa where I think you could hide quite well. Little towns in the Karoo. No one's going to come looking for you there.
Yeah.
No, people do. I stayed in a little town in the Karoo. I lived there. And you sit around that little pub in the village and you look around and you think, I wonder how many people have run away from something. And I remember at one stage, a radio station came in this mobile OB van and did a number of shows from the area, and people didn't turn up because they're hiding from something. They don't want to be seen or spoken to or recognized. They just want to be alone.
When you say running away, it might not be from criminal things. It might be from a crazy ex. It might be from
Absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe they've just decided to start their life anew. And this is all part of the conversation that Ali started with us with Dr. Hanan earlier. But imagine how exciting it must be when you don't have an option. Like you've got it, you've fully committed to the idea because there just isn't, there's no turning back, right? You get in your car, or you get on a plane or whatever, and you just go with a suitcase. That's all you've got. And you have to start from scratch.
That sounds really
sounds very
exciting.
appealing.
It's exciting, right? I mean, it's like a part of me goes, "Ooh, it would be amazing." Anyway, I mean, Congo Chris says you can go to the Scottish Isles. They will pay you to go and live there. It's just so shit so much of the year, really. Marco says Portugal's stunning, but he also likes the idea of Poland. So between you two could each house Marco for a while in UMash in Poland and Leigh-Ann in the Algarve in Portugal. Silicide says, go to Home Affairs, get a new ID, move to Lichtenberg, isolated and boring as heck. Lichtenberg. Jesus. Yeah, there are parts of South Africa that even if I was being hunted down by the police, I wouldn't move to. There's some
Like, who's gonna look for you in Putaditaba, you know?
Oh, exactly.
My hometown.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, it is.
Out of all the places in South Africa, I guessed your hometown.
Yeah, there we go.
Could it be a place to hide, do you think?
No, you can't hide there. It's actually really popping there. There's lots of events there. I'm not defending it. It is very popping. Lots of celebrities come down there. Even that naked hike is there. The naked hike. I'm sure you guys have heard about that. It happens in Putadichaba. Lots of events happen in Putadichaba. There's lots of huge churches, those evangelists and all of that show up on TV. Right. So it's really popping there. You can't hide there. You can't. But you can hide in Kuruman.
This is important news. Kuruman, eh?
Yeah.
Well, all right. So there's a place not to go to. Now we know. So tick that one off. Also, I think in a big city, it's probably hard. It's easier to hide than in a little town. So maybe we're actually being counterintuitive here. And the real thing that you should do is go to the busiest places you can find, because then you can just mix into the crowd and no one will ever know you're there.
Yeah, you can hide in plain sight that side.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I mean, we always play the game with the zombie apocalypse. It's like, what would your first move be if suddenly everybody started turning into zombies? And half of the people say, get out of town, because those people will become zombies and they become more dangerous. And the other half are like, no, stay where the resources are. I don't know the difference. To me, I think I'd prefer to be where there are less people, because I always think people are more dangerous than zombies. And the more people you have around you, the larger your chances are of being picked off, you know.
That is true. Yeah. In such cases, in these apocalyptic events. The biggest threat is other people who are not the zombies. So you'd want to stay away from them more than anything, actually, just to save yourself. Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's all stop fantasizing about that stuff now, because nobody can go anywhere in the dark. And with load shedding, you'll only be able to move around. It's almost like we've gone back to like primitive man, where your body is now, oh, well, if it's dark, I must sleep. You know, you're like completely controlled by your circadian rhythms.
Yeah. That is true. That is absolutely true. But I had trouble sleeping last night. Main reason being, yesterday was quite ridiculous. After my date yesterday, I actually went for a walk because I came home and I realized that I went on another date yesterday, but that's not the point. The point is I went for a walk. I got home. There was no electricity. So I was like, let me go for a walk quickly, go up the street, come back home. I see red lights. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Because I see lights by my complex and it's an ambulance. And I walk to the complex. I start talking to the security guards because I'm really nosy. So I start asking them, what's going on exactly? What happened here? And the security guard tells me that, geez, dude, a child fell from the 5th floor.
Oh my God.
Shit.
Yes. A child fell from the 5th floor and I was just so traumatized. So I asked him, okay, so what exactly happened? Where's the child? Are they okay? And he's like, of course the child's not okay. Fell from the 5th floor, but they are alive. Yeah. And I
Oh,
asked,
my
where are the
Lord.
parents? How did it happen? What's going on? And he tells me that so the parents actually, well, parents or guardians, whatever they want to call themselves, but they don't deserve to be called parents at this point. But they went out on Friday and locked the child inside, and they've been out ever since. They just never came back. So now this poor child, I don't know if they didn't have food or what exactly happened, but they just wanted to get out of the house. And then I don't know if they were trying to jump from balcony to balcony or what exactly they were trying to attempt to do. But next thing you know, child falls.
That is awful. What a terrible story. Jesus. I mean, first of all, I thought the story was bad when you said a kid fell from the 5th floor, and it is. But then I got even worse when you said that the parents just basically locked the kid in the apartment and gapped it.
And just left. Yeah, they went out drinking or something the whole weekend.
Oh, my Lord.
There's some terrible, terrible people in this world. I feel bad when I leave my dog for like an hour to go to the shops.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
How can you be so irresponsible? I mean, we were talking last week this time about the tavern in East London, right? We were talking about that level of irresponsibility. We have got some of the worst parents in the world here in this country. Really. Like people who just don't give a shit about their responsibilities. They just don't care. By the way, someone's asking, though, Mash, on a much more serious note, did you also go on a date with the waiter from the restaurant who'd saved your ass with a...
What's your third date?
No, this was someone completely different.
you are very obviously highly in demand at the moment for essentially this many dates over one weekend. It's not really fair for the rest of us. Sorry. Not on. Is it true that you got someone interested in you because Simpiwe shared something on her TikTok, and that's how you ended up getting a follower who wanted to date you? Is that true?
Yes, that is true. So
somebody told me
that is true. And then so me and this person are actually planning on going on a date sometime this week. We did meet last week.
This is a totally different person. So this would be date number 4 this week, right? This would be the 4th date in a week.
Yes, this would be my 4th date.
You are cleaning up. Holy shit. You know, everybody says, it's so hard to find a nice partner or an interesting date. Not for you, clearly. You are lining them up.
Leave some for the rest of us.
I will, Leigh-Ann. I'll leave y'all crumbs. But it's just the thing of... it's easy to find dates, but it's hard to find a partner. Because nowadays...
What are you looking for, though?
Yeah, because my thing is I'm very... I wouldn't say I'm picky. I'm not picky at all. But I have certain boxes that all need to be ticked, or else, I am open to compromise. Compromise is great, but you can't compromise on everything. Is what I'm getting at. You can't compromise on, for example, cleanliness. You can't compromise on, for example, somebody who's actually financially literate and actually understands what makes sense to spend money on and what doesn't make sense to spend money on. You can't compromise on such things, or else you just, it's detrimental to your mental health. You can't be with such a person. So for me, it's just a thing of tick my boxes, and they're not hectic. It's very low level stuff, but not everybody can do that. Hence, I just keep going on dates.
Well, I'm proud of you for doing that. You know, so many people don't even make the effort. They expect like someone amazing to fall into their lap. And they don't even go and meet people. They don't bother to set up dates. They don't bother to have that coffee. You know, it's hard. Like dating it requires at least, as Dr. Hanan said earlier, it needs an investment of some of those coins of yours. And if you're not going to go the trouble of meeting people, then you can't complain when nobody comes your way.
Absolutely. You also have to put yourself out there, you know, whether it's joining apps, dating apps, or even on Instagram, just post some cute pictures, you know, like just take that bra strap to the side a bit. You know what I mean, Leigh-Ann?
Listen, if I move my bra straps, all hell will break loose. They have to stay where they are.
No, so Mash, I mean, I'm not being patronizing when I say this. It's a good thing to see someone who's making an effort like this, because then when you do eventually meet someone nice, you've put in the work. You deserve it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's going to happen. It's not going to fall into your lap.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You have to put yourself out there. There's no other way. In 2022, there's no other way.
Yeah. No, I like that. All right. So we've figured out that Mash is probably the one who gets the most dates out of all of us, and not just on the show, but in general. By the way, just one quick thing on this, because we mentioned how it's a good idea to go for an afternoon thing, because then you can cut it short if you want to, or you can extend it into the night if you want to as well. There are some things that are just a very bad idea, like Friday afternoon lunches, whether it's with clients, whether it's with business colleagues, whether it's with family, friends. Friday lunches are always a terrible idea. If you aren't 100% committed to that, never do the Friday lunch, because it always ends up going on late, becomes many drinks. If you're driving there in your car, it's a disaster. You have to think about these things and plan that well in advance.
And you do get carried away.
Friday's never good for that stuff. Yeah. Because you think, oh, well, it's the weekend now. I don't have to rush back home. I'm enjoying myself. 3 drinks become 6. You order more food. You're sitting there after the sun's gone down and you're like, wow, this has been a long lunch. And then before you know it, it's Saturday.
Yeah. Next location.
Exactly. So I would say that my bit of advice is try to avoid those lunches on a Friday, even on a Saturday. Friday and Saturday lunches are deadly. Brunch is fine because you can always get away and say, I've got lunch arrangements, or you have things to do in the afternoon. But there's some decisions that you can't get out of. Gary and Sanela are talking here. Gary says, Mash came back to give a proper tip. To the Gary, I see you living up to your name and keeping it clean. I'll make an effort too. Mash must go back and give a tip with a happy ending. Geez, Mash, they're all climbing into your private life. Now.
Wow.
You see this? You share your stories on this show, and look what happens. Everybody decides they have a right to say something.
Oh, geez. Proper tip. Oh, I'm traumatized.
I think that the one thing that I've also learned out of load shedding in the last while, just to go back to that for a second, is that a braai or a fire doesn't care about Eskom. So if you have a fire, and this obviously counts for everybody, because you can make a fire whether you've got lots of money or very little money. You can always buy one of those little braais and make a fire, and that can keep you warm, and you can cook your food on it. It's a good idea. So there's another way we can hopefully make it through what is not going to be a very pleasant time for us, but hopefully not a too long time with this level 6 bullshit, which kicks in today again.
Yeah.
All right. What else have you got on your agenda, Leigh-Ann Mole? I know you had a whole bunch of things you wanted to talk about. We've got Collectomania coming up in a little while, by the way, so stick to us for at least another 15 or so minutes, and we've got Collectomania kicking off. What did you want to throw in?
So speaking of moving to the UK, if that's something you were thinking of, this is something that came up that I was very, very surprised about. But apparently used wet wipes have formed an actual island that's changed the course of the Thames River in the UK.
No.
Yeah. So as much as we think these...
Is this like that plastic island in the Pacific where all the plastic bottles and plastic bags and plastic bullshit is just all gathered into a big, like, moving massive pollution?
Pretty much, but this is quite a solid development.
Oh, my God, it's disgusting.
It's the size of 2 tennis courts, right? Jesus. In the river, and it's called Wet Wipe Island. It all comes from flushing wet wipes, which we all think are safe to flush, but most of them aren't, because they actually contain plastic. So yeah, your plastic analogy is not far off. But
so people just flush these things, and now it's formed an actual island of filth in the middle of the Thames River.
Yeah, because they don't disintegrate, being plastic. You can actually stand on the island. It's a meter deep or a little bit more in places of just wet wipes. And so now the government's planning on banning certain wet wipes even the manufacture and sale of them, the ones containing plastic.
Oh, that's so gross.
But yeah, so it just makes you think. I mean, I'm surprised we don't have issues like that here. I mean, where are our wet wipes going? Is there an island forming? Is there an island forming somewhere that we don't know about?
I don't want to start my Monday by complaining even more, but I've got a river in front of me here. It's basically just like a garbage. What do you call those things? Conveyor belt. It's like a conveyor belt of garbage and just shit. Man. And in fact, now in the middle of winter, it stinks too, because you know what? They pour everything in there. People upstream are obviously shitting in the river and God knows what else, but it's disgusting. I don't think any river in South Africa you can't drink water from any of them.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
You're certainly not like dipping your mug in to have a drink of water.
I've mentioned this before. If I fell in that river, I would have to go straight to intensive care.
Jeez. Probably acidic.
It's so disgusting, Mash. I don't know how any of the animals, I mean, there's sometimes duck and, like other wild fowl that live on and around the river. And I don't know how they aren't all dead. And supposedly there's some fish that have managed to live in this river. God alone knows how. But, we mustn't point fingers at the UK with their wet wipe island, which is gross, when we've got our own revolting pollution happening all around us. I don't know how they're ever going to sort this out, because it's like plastic waste, but it's also stuff that's in the water that you can't do anything about. So I don't know. I really don't think that humans are looking after the earth very well. Tracy says, I never realized you couldn't flush wet wipes until our sewage started pushing back up our toilets. The worst experience. Sorry for the plumber who had to fix it. It was horrible. Oh, that's so gross.
Sure. And it's a thing of, you think you're the only one when you do it. You think to yourself, I'm just the only. Yeah, you're like, everybody knows you don't flush wet wipes, so it's probably just me. Won't make a difference. But you just added a meterage to the mountain, to the island.
Yeah. A good place for the people who are still crying for the mask to be mandated to move. Yeah, because these masks are everywhere as well. I don't know if you've seen how much, there have been a couple of articles written about mask pollution and how bad that's been. Sebastian says, no one in London wants to end up face down on top of the river.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And there are people who swim in there as well for like exercise and fun.
This is disgusting. Congo Chris says, a few years ago, they dislodged a 1-ton fatberg in the sewers of London a few years back. So that's like an iceberg of fat that was moving through a big
Probably
thing.
From like cooking or
and people's gross bodily. It's just. All right,
but it's just another example. Yeah, it's another example of how when you throw after you cook vors or something, and then you throw the oil down the sink, you don't think of where that goes. What happens to that oil? Somewhere down the line, there's a huge fatberg developing in Joburg.
All right, well, you're going to love Collectomania for this morning. Leigh-Ann and I spoke to a guy. Yes. This is just the greatest. So we spoke to a guy who collects something that we've never had on the show before. And I'm very excited to bring you the exclusive interview with a man who owns the Poozeum. And this is a Collectomania like you've never seen before. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, for the Poozeum in Collectomania this Monday morning. Aren't you lucky? There it is. All right. It is time for another episode of Collectomania. And today is going to be one of my favorites. I can just feel it, because this is going to be something which we've never done before. This guy is dubbed the king of fossilized feces by the Miami Herald. His name is George Frandsen. He has soiled his reputation to teach the world about coprolites or fossilized poop. George holds the Guinness World Record for the largest collection of coprolites, over 7,000 specimens, and the largest coprolite by a carnivorous animal, which we'll talk about in a moment or two. In 2014, he used his vast collection to start the world's foremost virtual coprolite resource center. It's called the Poozeum. And the site exhibits scientific research, historical discovery information, news, videos, and specimen photographs for comparative analysis. He also loans specimens from his massive collection to museums around the country, that's the US, so that the public can feast their eyes on real fossilized poop and learn why it's so special. George hopes that his passion and his enthusiasm for coprolites will inspire others, including all of us this morning, and especially young people, to immerse themselves in the sciences and in prehistoric history. Now, if that isn't an introduction, I don't know what is. George Frandsen, what a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you?
Good morning, good afternoon there. It is a pleasure being here, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, what an honor to have the man who started the Poozeum on our show. I'm trying to contain myself here. But George, let's just be serious for a second, and then we can get back to the joking in a moment. Coprolites, these are exceedingly rare things, some of them quite valuable, and they tell us an enormous amount about our prehistoric history on planet Earth, don't they?
They absolutely do. First, when you hear about it, it's kind of funny. Some people might think it's really gross that you have, you're a turd collector, and it's I guess it is, but it isn't. These are very old poops that have been mineralized over millions of years, and they hold contents, and they hold the keys to our prehistoric history. When scientists look into coprolites, they can find bits of bones and scales and plant matter that give direct evidence of what that environment looked like millions of years ago. No other fossil does that. So they're like little time capsules that when we can find them, they tell us a great amount of information about our prehistory. So personally, I think they are the most fascinating of all fossils, and that's why I'm just so passionate about it. And they're funny, and people get a kick out of them. So I think it's a good thing to collect and to share.
I think it's fantastic. You mentioned all the prehistoric information this can give us, but of course there are people in the modern world who also can collect human feces from hundreds, thousands, perhaps even millions of years ago. The original human ancestors, tells us about their diet, tells us what kind of lives they led, what their main preoccupations were, how much time they spent getting food, what the variety of that food was. And of course, there are arguments that come into this that are really, really interesting on the cutting edge of science at the moment about how the diet of early humans may have made us cleverer, faster, sharper, better at handling tools. If we hadn't had all of that stuff, we'd be swinging from the trees still. And obviously, these are things that quite seriously need to be investigated. So poo can be very serious.
No, absolutely. There's a famous human poop in London. It's called England, I'm sorry. It's called the Lloyd's Bank coprolite. It's an old Viking turd. And they've done studies on it, and they've learned that, these Viking people had a lot of grain, but they ate a lot of meat that was infested with parasites. And they can actually identify the parasites of the time and what these Vikings were ingesting and what was in their system. It's fascinating. It was actually insured for, I think, $30,000 or something.
Wow.
You wouldn't want to be in a cubicle next to a Viking who's taking a dump, right?
No, you probably wouldn't want to share food after this, knowing what they're digesting. No.
Well, if you think about it, though, I mean, you're talking about dinosaur turds, and this is really amazing because we don't know. For example, there's still a hot debate about which dinosaurs had feathers, whether or not they were more like reptiles, the Saurischians, there are all these different family derivations, which we're only just starting to discover now. In fact, if they had to remake those early textbooks that we all learned from, they'd probably say that a lot of the dinosaurs didn't look very much like we saw them in those early textbooks. And part of that research comes from looking at what their diet was. And part of that research comes from very, very well preserved fossils, which are exceedingly rare and which are hard to find. And if you do find them, can be sold for quite a lot of money. And for collectors like you, it's a very, very busy and creative endeavor.
Yes, absolutely. Coprolites are fairly rare, and they weren't really a thing to paleontologists till fairly recently. I'd say the last 25 years. Nobody really collected them. Nobody was really looking at them. They were after the sexy fossils, you know, the skulls, the giant dinosaurs. They wanted to find the biggest dinosaur. They wanted to find the most ferocious theropod. They wanted that kind of stuff, big teeth, unique attributes of the body. They wanted to name dinosaurs. No paleontologist, there's only one that I can think of that was, you know, set their reputation out to find fossilized poop and to study it. Interestingly enough, there was kind of a lost period because back in the 1820s, Mary Anning, and she's the one that, you know, She Sells Seashells by Seashore, that poem. She was the one who found coprolites back in the 1820s, and she says, "I think these are poops from prehistoric creatures." And she
could have made more if she had sold the coprolites instead of just the seashells.
Absolutely, she missed one there, and so she shared it with the scientific community, and they were a thing back in the 1820s and 1830s, and there were studies, and then it kind of died for a bit, all the way up until I'd say the 1990s. They weren't really a thing.
So how did your interest start, and how did you start your collection? Were you a kid? Did it happen much later on in adult life? How did it begin?
Oh, that's a great question. So I grew up in the Western United States in a state called Utah, which is filled with all kinds of neat prehistoric stuff. We have old rocks, we have fossils of dinosaurs, we have time periods from older than dinosaurs. You can find trilobites and stuff. So as a young person, we'd go out and look for fossils and hike around, and it just became a kind of a passion of mine to study dinosaurs. And every young kid, I think, goes through a phase where they really love dinosaurs. So I took that first year of college. I was in a paleontology class, and I was getting more interested in it, and ended up going to a rock and fossil shop that had something, and it said coprolite on it. It looked like a turd, and I asked the guy at the shop, "Hey, you know, what is this?" And he said, "Oh, it's a coprolite." And I get that. What is it? So I had never, in all my years, heard of one, because no children's books, no young youth books about dinosaurs talk about turds at the time. And he said, "Oh, it's a fossilized poop." I was like, "No." I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. And it was $20. And back then, this was 25 years ago, it was $20, and still is, a lot of money. And I bought it, and I took it. I thought it was the most amazing thing. I wanted to share it with everybody, and they thought it was neat and amazing. And so I worked with my professor and other people in the department there to learn more about coprolites and where they can be found in that area. And I set out to teach myself about coprolites and go look for coprolites. And then it was about the same time eBay started really becoming big. And so I was able to connect with people who were selling coprolites from all over the world. So I'd find them, I'd sell them, I'd network with people. And one turned into a couple dozen fairly quickly. And, you know, after about 10 years, I had maybe a few hundred. And then it just really started, my network really started to build from all over the world. And, you know, I got better, and I also got progressively better jobs where I had a little more money to spend on these things. And it just grew. And then
now over 7,000 specimens, including the largest carnivorous coprolite, or the coprolite of a carnivorous animal. Tell us about that, because that's a Guinness World Record holder. That must be your prized possession in your collection.
Yes, that's so I have the world's largest fossilized poop. It is from South Dakota, and it is Cretaceous, so it's just over 65 million years old. And it's about 26, 27 inches long and about 7 inches wide. And it is filled with little bone bits. And we know it's from a Tyrannosaurus rex because there are no other identified dinosaurs of that time and of that space that could have made such a large poop. That obviously was from a carnivore because it's got all the bone bits through it. That
so
one
not
is
yours,
named,
Leigh-Ann. I mean, just
No,
so we clear.
but I was thinking if you found a whole bird type dinosaur in there, you'd know that it hadn't gone through the digestive system, but it had died as a result of the impact of the poop.
yes, it smashed right into it.
Yeah.
Well, that is quite wild. I mean, listen, you're really in the life and times of the Tyrannosaurus Rex when you're in its turd. That to me is way more interesting than just the fossilized arm of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now, you've got a skull in the background there. What is that of? And is it a real fossil or is it just a replica?
Oh, so that's some decor. That is a replica of a small T-Rex. So I love T-Rex, and so this is a small skull. I have a full replica skeleton in my dining room.
Wow,
kind of crazy.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, my house
and what is that?
what is that?
It looks like a fish. What is that fish on top of the bookshelf behind you?
That is it looks like a fish, kind of. It is a dragon. It is a antique wood carved dragon from Southeast Asia.
Okay, so it's not a fossil of any kind.
No, there's some right. Let's see if I can find. There's some turds right in there that just haven't found a home yet.
That's so great. And George, you have to have a sense of humor about this, right? Because everybody else says, oh, this guy collects turds. But I mean, if you took it super, super seriously and you had no sense of humor about it, you'd go crazy eventually because people are like, ha, ha, ha. They don't take it seriously. So why should you?
No, a lot of people don't take it seriously, and they give me a hard time. They make a lot of jokes, but which is fine because you know what? They're talking about it. It's interesting. And
yeah,
I don't care. It's my thing. It's interesting to me. And after the Poozeum got out, I know the traffic the Poozeum gets, and from Guinness and everything else. There are a lot of people out in the world who also find it interesting, and that's who it's for. Can't make everybody happy. You can't make everybody believe.
Right.
They are what they are. There's a lot of doubters that think there's just regular stones, and that's fine. They're welcome to come check it out and learn, but it's not going to be any chip off my back
Is the Poozeum open to, like, people can walk in, they can make a booking, they can come and see your collection? I mean, how accessible is it? Because you also have to be careful. You can't have people dropping the stuff and breaking it. You can't have them stealing your stuff. You've got to actually keep an eye because some of this must be quite valuable.
Yes. So I have a series of pieces that travel in an exhibit. And right now it's at the Orlando Science Center as part of an exhibit. It's very cool where the public can go to this museum and see the most coprolites they've ever seen in their whole life all in one place. They can see Barnum, the world's largest T-Rex poop. They can see crocodile poops. They can see all kinds of different stuff and learn about coprolites. And what I do is I donate that. I share it with these museums as long as they say, hey, we want to host it and we will keep it safe and insure it. And they pay for the costs of getting it there. I'll share it with them for free because I think it's you have a collection like this, it's very important to share it with those who are interested, share it with the public. And, I've had a lot of scientists, paleontologists reach out who are working on a paper, who have questions. Mm-hmm. It's open to them. There's a lot of specimens online that they can see. If anybody sees one, they say, hey, I really have more questions, or can we meet to talk about it, or can I see it? I'm very, willing to work something out so that can happen.
Your back door's always open.
Sorry, Leigh-Ann, what did you want to say?
I got that. That's good.
Never mind, Gareth. What I wanted to ask was, though, transporting this stuff all over, obviously it gets onto planes, and have you ever had to explain to someone, or do you just say it's a coprolite and they think, oh, well, it's some scientific thing? Or, I mean, I don't know if they'd be that happy knowing that you were transporting poop all over, right?
No, I've been stopped a few times going through airports, so I keep them in these very nice padded boxes, these travel cases. And of course, sometimes the x-rays, they don't know what I'm traveling. It's an odd case, so I guess one of the security people always wanting to open it up, and they're like, what is this? And I was like, well, they're fossils. They're fossilized poop. And depending on the person, it's a really neat reaction or a really poor reaction. And then, sometimes if it's not a great reaction, I go for additional screening. So it's part of what happens when you're in the business of poop.
You mentioned insurance, and that's an interesting side of this. Have you actually had the collection valued? Do you know what it's worth? And how do you go about insuring a coprolite?
Oh, that was the most interesting feat ever. So after I acquired Barnum, the T-Rex poop, in 2020, it's of course very valuable. It was certified by Guinness World Records. So I had to get it insured. So I went to a few of the big clearinghouses for priceless objects, you could say. Like, hey, I want to get this insured. And trust me, when you go to a place like that and say you want to get a poop insured that's normally doing fine art and coins and things like that, the reaction is kind of unique. So lots of times I'll say, I just got a lot of rejections. No, this is not something we're interested in. We're not going to do it. Keep looking. Maybe they'd give a recommendation. And it took a year of going to all these different places. And finally, they said, well, we might do it, but you need an appraisal. You need an official appraisal. All right, great. I didn't really think it through. So then you do the same thing all over. You go and to all these appraisers. Some of them are in the same places, and like Lloyd's and Sotheby's and whatnot. And you say, hey, I want this appraised. And there's nothing else like it. So there's nothing to compare it to give a proper appraisal. I finally, after many, many emails and many, many rejections, which I'm used to in this, and it's fine, I found a guy who was actually hired by the US government to appraise a collection of somebody who was being, was going through some court cases with the US government about fossils. So he had the background of appraising unique and big fossil collections. So he did appraise Barnum, and once I had that, I was able to go to the insurance companies and shop it around and get insurance on Barnum.
What kind of insurance do you have to take out on a turd?
Like how much?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's probably your listen to me. It is probably the most valuable piece in your collection, and it certainly would be more valuable than anything that we dig up in our backyards. I mean, it's rare, it's enormous, it's hugely research and scientifically famous and important. So what kind of price would that fetch on the open market? And by the way, how did you acquire it? You just kind of breezed past that, but where would someone even go to acquire something like this?
It's all about networking. So there was a private rancher up in South Dakota who came across it. There was a middleman that I knew who got it from him, talked to him, said, hey, I know a guy. He contacted me and said, hey, I've got this. Are you interested? I said, possibly. I need to get it, I need to look at it. It'll probably need to be tested and whatnot. And everything worked out. So I picked it up, and something like this, I give you a ballpark, approximately 20,000 US.
Wow. Holy shit, and literally. That's phenomenal.
Yes. And it may go for much, much more, or I would never sell it, but if something ever happens to me and my family gets rid of it to, pay for all my poo debts, You know, you may go for less. Who knows? It's
George, this is an amazing thing. I mean, first of all, you know, your collection has scientific merit. A lot of the people we've spoken to on Collectomania, they just like collecting things. But your interest does not stretch beyond the world of fossilized poop, right? I mean, you're not collecting like more recent specimens, and you're not particularly interested in modern animals and on their turds, or am I wrong?
No, I'm actually kind of a germphobe when it comes to stuff like that. 10,000 years is the cutoff for me. There are some kind of turds in Florida that are questionable, and you know, a few thousand years old. They're just not mineralized. They're kind of chalky, and that's a little scary to me. So they get thrown back. You really have to make sure they're mineralized, they are stone before they come into the collection. In feces of modern animals, because it tells us something about prehistoric animals. So I do study it. I am interested in, you know, what current animal poop looks like. What does a crocodile poop look like? What does like an ostrich poop look like? You know, things that maybe we can draw reference to prehistoric past with. However, it's all photographs and, you know, online research and libraries. It's not, hey, look, this was outside, bringing it in to put into a case.
Tell me, what other kind of interesting coprolites do you have there, which you can actually associate with a particular species of dinosaur or prehistoric animal? I mean, which ones are you most interested in? Do you, for example, have like saber-toothed tiger turds, or do you have something from a triceratops or something from a brontosaurus? I mean, how big, by the way, would a brontosaurus's turd be? That's quite a scary idea. I often joke because I parked my car at my parents' house. There's a big tree above the car, and for some reason these birds all seem to shit in enormous quantities all over my car, and I always joke that it must be a pterodactyl that lives in the tree. Now, I mean, is it true that a brontosaurus would have made enormous big turds, and do you have one of those?
I don't have a brontosaurus turd. It's interesting. There's been studies about brontosaurus turds. You get these giant dinosaurs, and when they poop, it's got a long way to fall, right? Unless they poop into the water. And so a lot of them they scatter. You wouldn't get this nice, beautiful turd shape. You'd get maybe like a cow patty. You know, it looks like a big round
I'm just
blob.
trying to imagine, like, if you were unfortunate enough to be walking behind a brontosaurus who had diarrhea, I mean, you could be killed by the impact. Leigh-Ann joked earlier, but you probably, the quantity and the height that it's dropped from, it could be quite deadly if a human was around at that time.
There was a guy at a zoo who got stuck under elephant poop and died.
No.
He suffocated.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. He couldn't get up.
I think it could be dangerous. But as far as my favorite, so there's all different kinds of fossilized poop that are interesting, but some of my favorite are ones with bite marks. So these are poops that were made by some prehistoric critter. A lot of them are probably crocodilian of some sort, and they're floating through the water, and some fish or some other critter thinks it's a meal. They smell it and they think it's a meal, and they come up and take a bite out of it and learn that it's like, oh, that was not a nice meal, and they release it and they go about their day. Well, they leave very distinct bite marks on these feces that turn into coprolites. I have one, it's about the size of a little pie, you know, one of those little fruit pies you get.
Yeah.
And it's
Good
like
size.
if a critter went and just if you took a bite out of it without pulling the piece off, and it has perfect teeth marks, upper and bottom bite mark impressions, where you can see every tooth, top and bottom, and somehow in the whole process, it didn't fall apart, and it is one solid piece. That's just the thought of it. What had to happen to make that happen is fascinating.
If you were a great paleontologist, you could probably piece together the jaw of that particular creature and figure out what it was. I mean, this is a whole other, you know, private investigation, sci-fi historical research project, which I'm sure there are lots of people who'd be interested in. I love the fact that you are one of the few collectors we've had on the show who can also actually send like your traveling collection to museums and for research purposes to other people's offices and labs all over the world. I mean, that's really, really interesting stuff. What do your family think of this, though, and your friends?
Well, I have a very supporting wife. She doesn't care. Sometimes she'll come home and there's turds on the table. Some people might care about that. She's very supportive, and she knows it was one of my things when we met. So that's great. Family's supportive, and friends, they're also supportive. Everybody in my circle, they know about it, and they help me out with it whenever they're able to. So it's nice to have that network to lean on.
Do you get to display all of this stuff, or is it mostly locked away? And are there specific conditions under which you need to lock it up? I mean, is it any of it sensitive to light or to air or to certain chemicals? I mean, do you have to keep special precautions when you store these things?
Yes, I do. So every piece is photographed and it is logged, all the information about that piece, where it was found, size, weight, age, yes, is recorded into a database. So I have this turd database, a Dookie database, and then it's bagged, numbered, boxed, and then you can see behind me there's I'll go one way or the other. There's a safe. There's one of them behind me. There's another one across the room, same size, that store pieces while they're here before they get shipped out or on display, or they just don't have a home yet.
So I just want to put up the picture for the people who are watching on YouTube. Here is the Guinness World Record. That is what do you call him? Barnum.
Barnum, yes.
Yeah.
Barnum Brown was the person who found the first Tyrannosaurus Rex, and P.T. Barnum was, of course, the circus showman who was a pretty incredible person. So Barnum, the biggest turd, I thought was an appropriate name.
It's amazing. That's millions of years old, but it looks quite fresh.
Yeah, about just over 65 million years old. Looks kind of like a turd. It's rounded. You can kind of see the layers. If you look closely, you'll see little bone bits throughout it. And it's been studied. We know the contents of it and what minerals make up that fine turd.
Well, you're a fine collector, and it is a great pleasure and privilege to share this collection of yours with everybody who listens to and watches our show. And I'm really pleased we got to talk to you, George. I'm especially appreciative because I know the time difference. And thank you for sharing your collection. What can I say? It's terrific.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm a big fan of South Africa and the people there and just the beauty. It's an incredible country, and I'm looking forward to the day I get to come back. So thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
If any of us happen to find any dinosaur turds lying around, we'll know who to send them to.
Please give me a call. Shoot me some pictures. I actually get emails almost daily for people who have found rocks or something that believe they are fossilized poop. And I try to help them. Some of them are, some of them aren't.
Leigh-Ann, is this motivated you to start your own dinosaur turd collection?
Listen, if there's money in it, I'm after it. I mean, it brings a whole new meaning to rate my poop. You know, it could be worth a lot of money.
It costs you a lot of money to do this collecting. I mean, George has probably spent thousands and thousands of dollars over the years on collecting dinosaur poop.
I've made zero money off of this. I have spent many tens of thousands of dollars on it because it's a passion, and you gotta follow passions, and whatever it takes. So I don't mind spending the money. It makes no difference. I think it's a greater cause than spending it on, I don't know, anything else.
Well, thank you. And I'm always grateful for people like you in the world that are collecting things like this, because one day someone's going to say, if we don't look at that dinosaur turd, we're not going to know the answer to a certain very important question that civilization is dependent on. And who knows that they won't find the answer to that in Barnum, the T-Rex turd. George, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.